Welcome everyone to another Pixelated review. I'm your host, Pixelated Jordan. So now we have a full fantasy series called Legends of Gilia, or Gilia. I'm a little unsure on the pronunciation. Actually, there's a lot of things I'm unsure of the pronunciation. Anyway, this is a fantasy story taking place on the planet Gilia. One of the two. You have fun with it. Well, I guess for this review, we'll call it Gilia, because I think that's how it's supposed to be pronounced. Anyway, this is a indie author's fantasy story. So there is 15 books in total. Now, they're not the very long series. If I compare it to, one of my other fantasy series I've checked out, like The Sword of Truth, Nevernight, and indie, I would be, what's his name? Levy, yeah. That one book is bigger than the first two, I believe. But other than that, though, this is another indie fantasy story. And I wanted to check it out because I was very curious. And something about me is that when I start a series, I have to finish it to see it through the end. So, and that's what we have here. And one thing for sure I'm going to do differently for this tier list. There's a reason for it. Basically, we're going to separate these books in trilogies. It's designed that way, and there's a reason I'm going to do that anyway. So, I guess that's all we needed preparation for. So, yeah. So, without further ado, let's start this review. Book 1, Sword of Ruin. Book 2, Magic of Ruin. Book 3, Dragon of Ruin. Our protagonist, Ilrin, starts off in the land of ruin. He doesn't know anything. He has a crashed ship of some kind that the people on the lands have never seen before. That is right, my friends. This man has amnesia. Now, this is the first time I've ever dealt with a character that had amnesia, so I don't know how it was going to be. And pleasantly to say, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't the best, I guess you could say. Since I never really experienced the amnesia trope, as a lot of other people say they don't like, I think it was good. I was fine with it. However, it did not use its amnesia stuff to its fullest extent. For example, two scenes I can think of similar to Levy and to this one, but this one did it a little bit better. About a bunch of thieves taking some stuff from people, right? So, for example, Levy had the bunch of bandits taking stuff, and then this one, it was just one dude taking a necklace. In this book, the people who was with him, Hove and Ilrin, they were about to kill the guy for stealing stuff. They said, "Oh, stealing's about as bad as murder." And I like Ilrin's thought in this one. He basically said, "Hey, what if I was bad? What if I was evil? What if I did what if I stole them? And you guys let me have a second chance here, and you gave me a chance to, live. Let's do the same thing for this guy. I think it's totally fair." And obviously Levy, that one's, let's just give him a second chance. So there's a little bit more depth than that, but that's about the most you're going to see. Ilrin's kind of like this blank kind of character for the most part, and that's kind of something you can give or take. So, Bloom is on the other hand, she's a little girl in this one. Like, she thinks she was like 13 or 14 because all her village was taken down, and Bloom was just there, crying. Hove, who's our other main character, he's an old man, like your old wizard man and all that stuff, who knows so much about the world but keeps things in secret. And he plays a huge role later on. Anyway, these are kind of our trio right there. Ilrin, Holvin, Blooms. And yeah, it's cool. And then there's the magic stone that they carry, as Magic and Ruin really does kind of show us the magic and all that good stuff. They do get separated in the second book a lot, and it's kind of all over the place in the second one. But let's put it this way. First book, setup. Second part, all over the place. Third part, big battle. This is like this throughout the entire series. It's very by the books, if you could say. It's designed in a very simple way, and it gets repetitive after this point. You can have some death, and you can have some fun characters. For example, there's always factions in this one. First, you got the main faction, who are the bad guys. Then you got the good faction, in which obviously the good guys are on. Then you have the faction of tribes, I guess you could say. So in this one, it's a bunch of goblins. Stinkrunt is hilarious, and he is actually really good. So I generally liked Stinkrunt in this situation, and it was a lot of fun. Though in this one, the bad guys had assistance from demons, and they had a cool design, purpley fire and stuff like that. So that was a lot of fun. There's also elves that had learned necromancy, so there's that if you want to know about that. But overall, the presentation of the book also kind of suffers a little bit. There's some errors that should be kind of picked up, which kind of sucks. Because if it was, then it'd probably be a much easier read, but I don't really pay attention to that stuff, and the fact that I'm pointing it out, it's like, maybe you should probably look over it before you send it out. But for what's here, it's solid, I guess you could say. It's like, hey, we got A to B, and here we go. This is how the journey begins. And I do like the characters in general, but I did forget most of them. So, with that being said, as for the whole, I guess you could say, trilogy of this book, I give it a rating of, Book 4, Elves of Erodin. Book 5, Clans of Erodin. Book 6, Wars of Erodin. Okay, it could be Erodin or it could be Eridan. And I can't remember, but then again, it's up to your own perspective, I guess you could say. We're gonna say Erodin. Anyways, we start now in the 4th book, where Bloom lost her power at the end. She basically went supernova to defeat the whole bad guy bandit stuff. Oh yeah, Hove was lost for a little bit at the end of the 1st book. They found him in the 2nd one, so he's fine. Anyways, so we go to the lands of Erodin, and this is the place where they said, oh, we can get Bloom's power back. Alright, so we got some reasoning there. So, over here, we just keep going forward with kind of thing. We kind of discover the world of Eredon, and we see the elves have 2 separate tribes. You got this nature, good, loving little place. Then you got the industrial elves, which, they're the evil part. And then you got the tribe, they're the replacement of the goblins from before. These are called Rents, and let me tell you, these guys got an amazing guy named Kuno. The Red-Handed. Kuno was a beast. I love Kuno. And Rents in this story, are basically like kind of bipedal coyote people, And they were like just savages. I actually really did like their performance in this. They were just great. They were cool. And they just kicked butt and took some names. Can't complain about that. And the biggest thing is that when I was going through this, I felt like, I have seen this before. I have really seen this before, which really sucks because Kuno was just awesome. He just straight up just went, all right, tribes, let's get together. And I'm going to have all these women in your mind now too, by the way, because I said so. Because I got this cool stone that I grabbed in my hand and I'm super powerful. Downside is he's kind of burning himself from one of the stones, which sucks, but he was cool. I really enjoyed his performance overall. Anyway, and so it's all basically in like an elven war going on here, nature, and then there's a good side that the people of elves too that weren't, industrial, like big industrial people were. But we did get a nice little thing. Hove did something. They're saying that only someone with magic could do this. Hove just did it very easily, and no one questioned it, which I find super odd. No one questioned anything about it. Because Bloom was supposed to be one of the best magic users, and they didn't. Also, there was dragons. That dragon was really cool. I gotta admit that. And there was also a ship, not like your regular ship that's for the water, but there was an airplane ship, and it actually really liked it because it was connected to Illyrin. Illyrin actually was like, "Hey, does anyone know how to fly this?" Illyrin just replies, "Actually, yeah, I do," and it actually came out really cool. Like I said, the sad part is we had to wait a couple books to get something to chew on for Illyrin's backstory, which kind of sucks. So again, he's still kind of this blank slate who's just kind of going along for the ride and not really discovering who he is. And depending on how that is, it's just what it is, Hove, he ended up being a little bit mystery. His staff that he carries, what is it? His staff? I can't remember what the weapon he had, but his weapon's pretty awesome. And it's magical and all that good stuff, and it just, he has that. He's just super powerful, and no one questions it for some reason. And I don't know why, and that bugged me for a long time in the book, until we got an answer, but that we have to wait till then. Overall, this book, although I think is probably the better of all the, what came before, It's just that there's more. It's just I've seen it before, and that was the biggest problem of this trilogy, is that you already did this in the previous trilogy. Sure, you can argue that, hey, this was set up actually from the beginning, and then we did have some character growth from Bloom, Hold, and Ilrin. Granted, we did. So Bloom got to get more power, get actually better power. Actually, she was really cool. Ilrin got to actually learn about his past and actually have some like muscle memory, basically, which is really cool. And then we got Hove using some kind of magic. Now we do have some other side characters, side character dying, another character leaving because of the trauma she faced with that character dying, and so there is things going on. But when it comes to the overall arching plot of it, it is something we have seen before, and it's just kind of like, oh, well, I kind of know what's already going to happen. You may have the in-betweens, and that's the biggest problem. You know the in-betweens can happen, but you know how the outcome's going to end, no matter how much you change the middle. Though I love this one, with Kuno the Red-Handed, I would definitely say this is the best one out of the first trilogy that I read. So definitely the best one. So, with that being said, the trilogy of Rodden gets... Check it out. Book 7, Arrows of Lattice. Book 8, Daggers of Lattice. Book 9, Spears of Lattice. I'm pretty sure it's Lattice. At first I said ladies, but I'm like, it's not a land of ladies, not Amazonian. That's what I first thought when I saw the title, but I think it's Lattice. Anyways, we ended up after the war with Rodden. We now leave, and we're now on the lands of Lattice. How do we get there? They just did. They got captured when they were on the boat. That's the explanation. We didn't see it. That was the explanation. Which kind of sucked, because it was like, oh, I mean, you set up the first one, the second trilogy for it, but you didn't really set this one up. It just kind of happened. Anyway, this one was, it was something I was not kind of looking forward to be honest. They have kind of two little religions groups actually going on there, and it does affect Hove in some kind of way. However, both of them are kind of bad though in this one. So basically you have to pick the lesser of two evils, if you would say. And I guess that's different enough. But obviously when the demons come back, by the way. When the demons come back, you kind of go, okay, yeah, those are the guys that can't be in charge. So when that does happen, it is, it's kind of like, okay, cut and dry. These guys have to rule because they're the lesser of evil. They suck because their religion sucks, and so does the other guys, but these guys are better about it, or less fanatical, I guess you could say. They did use a lot of magic tech in this one, which was actually really creative. I actually liked using the stone with some kind of magic operating thing, and it was really cool, because that's kind of how, like, one of the, I think it was the ship in the previous one, that's how it worked, or I might be thinking ahead. Anyway, that was really cool. I actually really liked that a lot, because it was really epic in terms of like some of the scaling of the battles can be. But beyond that, other than the whole what he had, there was really not much to really chew on. There was lore, I guess. Lore actually kind of did build up for the ending, which kind of did help for the time being, but for what it was right there, it's kind of there and didn't really add much to the story other than building for future events. Also, the tribal people, I guess you would call them in this one, are called the Veiled Ones, and they're basically lizard people. I do not like them. They were the worst ones out of all of them. Hands down, they were the worst tribal representative in these trilogies. They sucked. I absolutely did not care for the Veiled Ones. The Veiled Ones. They just, yeah. The less said about those guys is the better, because yeah, they had one dominating, person in there trying to combine all the tribes, but he just wasn't I don't know, words. If I can learn how the words, I'll tell you. But it wasn't really charming in terms like the other two, where Stingrunt was funny and Kuno the Red-Handed was a beast. This guy was just dominating everyone, and that was about it. That was kind of his shtick. And then when he started losing, they just lost faith in him and they killed him. The end. At least with Kuno, he went out like a boss, but this guy, yeah, the Veiled Ones all together just kind of, they weren't that cool. They go invisible. Yeah, that's pretty cool. They were tough, they didn't really do much other than just kind of be there, I guess. Yeah, they were less impressive. And the whole, like I said, there were two lesser evils, yeah. So whoever used demons, yeah, they were like, yeah, you probably don't deal with those guys. So yeah, Lattice was kind of disappointing overall, and I did forget most of the book anyway, because I didn't really care much for the world, because everything kind of sucked over there. And we didn't even get a good setup for it, so overall, yeah, kind of disappointed in this trilogy here. So, the trilogy of Lattice gets a rating of forgettable. Book 10, Crystals of Redact. Book 11, Shadows of Redact. Book 12, Towers of Redact. I have to say, this was where the author was letting up to for Ilrin. Though we only had maybe 2 hints here and there, but it actually ended up being really, really good in some of these conflicts here. Well, this is where Ilrin was from, Redact. So in the beginning, we get to a little island where all these cat people live, and the cat people are pretty cool. And they don't act like kind of their traditional route, and which is kind of good, they're tribal, but they're not quite like that, which is kind of cool. So there is 2 different factions, of course. We got the regular Redact people where Ilrin's from, and they actually have a really cool kind of system going on. They built those flying machines that we hinted at the first book, and then into the Iradan trilogy at the end, how he knew how to fly because he was a pilot, which was really good. I was like, all right, these are good. And the family thing that was going on in there was actually even better than I thought was expected. Everything was setting up to be here, which was great. So starting from Crystal Redact, it was good. And then the other side is called the Court of Three. Very interesting name for another faction, but hey, whatever. They attacked them with these machine-like birds using the magic crystals. And it was actually genuinely a really fun fight. There was also, when they got captured, they did leave. There was a old guy I keep on forgetting to mention. He was a suit of armor in the first book, and the boat that they were on did crash, and that's the minimal plot stuff. Well, he ended up being a sword, and he ended up being Ilrin's sword, and he didn't talk until I think the end of the last trilogy. And which is cool because he was utilized kind of in a neat way, saying, oh, I overheard something and here's blah blah blah. So he's a talking sword now. But he doesn't really do much other than that, which is kind of disappointing. And when it comes to the family later on, it could have been better, I think, sadly. Because actually what ended up happening is that, they were trying to overthrow how the good side, quote unquote, the good side was. They're trying to make it a lot better. And that is something I thought was really cool. Ilrin was kind of against it because he's he kind of missed his family, but his sister's no, we need to do something about this. And she was kind of mad that he wasn't going to do that. Or because he missed his family. But that's a whole nother thing right there. So that was a thing. And then with the war actually coming about, it's because of Ilrin and his group flying those machines, and they believed it was the good side doing that. So it was actually very interesting to get to this point of hey, we have discovered this. Also, there's the cat people are slaves to the good side, so that's why they want to rebel, for these guys' sake. And then we get, sadly though, we do get to the end of this trilogy, and it just kind of sucked, honestly. Not only did Ilrin's sister die in the battle that really there shouldn't be any, I don't know how she was in the way anyway, but she was in the way somehow, and she died, and and it was because of his whole sphere, or whatever it's called, the spear he had. It just went through her and it killed her. And Ilrin straight up blames him for it, even though he was literally fighting the other guy of 2 magical beings that are straight up more stronger than Bloom ever was. And it's and then not only did he just claim revenge, going I'm gonna kill Hove because he did this to her, even though he was fighting for his life, and his sister somehow gone away, which I don't know how still. And there's also the subplot with elves, and I think it was setting up for the next book afterwards. But the whole third act of the third book really brought down the trilogy, which sucked because it actually had a lot of good things going on. And sadly, at the end, it did kind of fall back into its own trope of just war, of building this war, and then we're gonna have tribes, and then the good side, that's lesser evil, is gonna win. Which I still guess it's still their side, the Urin's side, but even then, they did change things up in there. But yeah, this was, it was a very mixed bag when it got to the end. And then we find out Hove is technically an alien. So that's a thing. And so, yeah, and that one gets more answers in the next trilogy, but I'm very disappointed how it did end. So as much as I think this was more of a solid entry than most of the other ones, because it did deviate a lot, finally, it just wasn't as great as I wish it could have been. The subplot with elves, like I said, the subplot that they had with elves just wasn't that compelling either. So, I guess, let's see, what's the rating we get for this? For the rating of the Redact trilogy, it gets a rating of meh. Book 13, Secrets of Galen. Book 14, Mages of Galen. Book 15, Citadel of Galen. So this is where it comes down to. Galen, a secret land that no one knew about from these alien super powerful magicians. Alright then, that's pretty cool. So, Hove is a part of this race from another planet, which makes them aliens, which is something I wasn't expecting. They ran away from their old home because it blew up from this comet that's about to show up. And this comet is where the demons are from. From the first book, by the way. There's this purple comet out in the sky. Point is, this comet's coming down, and it's gonna destroy the planet. And now it's in doomsday mode now. Anyway, so they're basically gonna execute Hove, and then they're gonna look at Bloom, trying to discover how do these people work with the stones, because we can't use the stones. So generally in the first book, it actually did end up being really cool. Though I was a bit bitter at the time because I was like, I can't believe how it ended. But the first book did ended up like showing these kind of cool examples, and we get a lot of lore pieces of Hove and Bloom in the magic system where it's kind of different. Not only do these people believe that they deserve to rule the world and because they're better than everyone, which I mean they are, but I'm like, yeah, you're kind of the bad guy. There's also there's other kind of people living on the island, which kind of sucks. Because honestly, I thought it would be a cool idea if it was just about those superpowered, beings. And then the team that we're used to going with Ilrin and the gang going to confront them. And whatever other side that lives on there. But no, all the races that we have ventured on this place live on this land. And it's run by a goblin who basically is like the Veiled One leader. No personality, nothing like that. He just kind of, I'm in charge. Also, there's a dragon too, so he's kind of doing his thing. So he combines all the tribes, from Rents to Veiled Ones to Goblins. So they all, and they can't, no, they were the good guys. And all that kind of combines together just to make it into the end. Sadly, it had a good start coming into this, but it sadly ended in kind of like, During that time, Ilrun was straight up on a murder spree, ready to go kill Hove, and then kind of later on, he's like, okay, maybe it wasn't his fault. Maybe he was actually legit tried, which, yeah, he kind of was. Anyway, they were trying to prevent this doomsday happening, which they technically do, the superpower beings, but they're also being attacked by the big old mob of people, of monsters and all that stuff, so the goblins and all that stuff, dragons, and it was just a big old mess of a fight at the end. And so when the comet actually comes down and hits, we skip to a year later. Yep, we just skip to a year later. Not only did all the apparently super-powered beings are dead, and then some of our good people that we did learn to love and all that good stuff, they all died. Well, most of them, like people who were named off, they died or didn't die. Hove died, I believe. Man, I can't remember. I know Bloom survived. I know that for a fact. And, it just kind of ended anticlimactic. It's like, all right, comet hit. Here's who survived. The end. I was like, oh. All that just... Oh. So, yeah, the ending kind of sucks. And though it had a great beginning, it kind of just fell back to its normal trope, and that's where it gets repetitive and boring and just even though there were great ideas presented in this books, it just was sad that it didn't continue that great ideas that it had. Also, I've been heard that one of my friends, he told me that it sounds like a lot like Final Fantasy 7. I never played it, to be honest, so I don't know if it is. Anyway, yeah, that's the Gallon right there. So let's give it a rating, shall we? For a rating of Gallon Trilogy, it gets a rating of forgettable. Overall, this is straight up is a amateur fantasy story. Now, I am not saying that is a bad thing. That is just what it is. Just because it's amateur fantasy doesn't make it bad. However, it has problems. First off, a repetitive of trilogies, if you will. The setup, the middle, and the end. We know what's going to happen, generally speaking. And that's all you know. You know what's going to happen. You know how it's going to end. You know how it's going to just all go down. Which really sucks, because the only one that it really did try its best to change up the formula was Redact. And that was going to be cool, And Redact did do a good job until it got to it and falling to its repetitive trope. And then when it came to the last trilogy of Gallon, it could have been better, because they could have just explored Hov's race with that, and then have the demons be the big antagonist at the end, having our group be that third group to come in the middle, be the middle guy trying to do that. And instead, we kind of just got demons, Hov's race, and then the mass of race of monsters kind of fighting all together, and our group was just somewhere in the middle. And sadly, that's the sad part about it. It just kind of ended. And that sucks, because there could have been more, but because of how repetitive a lot of things were in the entire series, you just kind of knew what was going to happen, which sucks, because, this could have been better. And also, I want to mention, too, there is a lot of errors in the story. Someone like me, I don't really mind if there's, grammar errors and stuff like that. It happens, to everybody. No matter how good you are, you're going to find some errors. But there was a lot. And when I notice it, because I don't pay attention that much and I don't really mind them, but I noticed a lot. And I think that might get a lot of you guys out of there. Oh, I don't like it that much. Oh, I don't like it because there's errors and stuff like that. And that's fine. It's kind of like what I did with my Nevernight videos. I got so bugged and taken out of it because of all the footnotes. So, same thing kind of here. If you cannot stand errors, there's a lot of it, and you might not enjoy it because of that. But is this a fantasy story you should read? Well, that is up to you. If you are a fantasy reader, you might not like it. You might actually hate it. But if you're someone who just doesn't mind little nonsense fantasy story, or just something to just get your toes dipping, there's better ones out here. But I think this one is not a bad read. I do feel bad for kind of crapping on some of the repetitiveness and some of the things, because this is definitely someone's dream. RG Long's is his dream, obviously, and he did his best he can do. Sadly, presentation wasn't there, but I'm glad that this man is still writing, and I'm happy that he is still trying to do his work, and that is something great. And a lot of indie authors wouldn't do that, but I'm glad this guy still tries at least, and I hope that he gets a good editor and all the errors are gone. That's just all my hopes is. But other than that, I think it's time to give an entire series a rating, shall we? For the rating of Legends of Gilia series gets a rating of meh. I want to thank you guys all for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you want more series reviews and book reviews, I have plenty more in the playlist right here. And if you want anything else I recommend, there you go. It's all right there for you. So thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a great day.